Let's call this meeting to order. We don't have a quorum, but we have a lot of bills, and we can't vote until we have a quorum. But with that, we'll start anyway so we can get some testimony done. And I'd like to tell everybody that we are going to have an omnibus bill now. I should tell you that, Ron. And it's I will move, even though we can't vote on it, House File 1400 to be possibly included in an omnibus bill. Omnibus policy bill. How about that? Welcome to our committee, Representative Champion.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for having me this morning. The bill before you is 1400, and once you get a quorum, Mr. Chair, I would hope that we can move the delete all amendment.
Oh, this bonding, okay. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so that the committee is really clear, I represent half of the Nicollet Mall, and the other half is represented by Representative Green, and I believe that she is going to come join us today, and when she does so, I will definitely recognize her. Both of us.
She's right behind you.
I'm sitting with you.
Come on up.
Here she is. You know, I need to make sure that I recognize Representative Green. She is a great partner to have downtown Minneapolis, and we just really appreciate her representation. Both of us understand how important this project is to our business leaders and those who work for these large corporations. So it is vital to their success. However, I want to say a word about the other half of my district and why this project is important to the folks who live in a more challenged part of our community. Not only is this project important to helping to foster growth in the city's base, which helps us all, but also to many of the small employers who create the job behind the jobs for these corporations. The workers who support the corporate workforce, or those in the hospitality industry who are often residents of communities like the northern half of my district. The workers in hotels and restaurants, these are those who maintain these towers, clean the offices, the workers who we sometimes don't think about, those workers for whom these jobs are important. And it is also like a second income, a way to make ends meet, or that extra work that allows them to provide something better for their families. That is why I enthusiastically got behind this proposal to help both parts of my district, the city and the state. And just to lay out this particular bill, I'm going to ask to come to the table two great people, and they will also bring up some other testifiers that we have here, Mr. Sam Garboski and Sarah Harris from the Downtown Council, to give the background on the project.
I did move the bill, right? Yeah. Okay. Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Mr. Chairman, I am Sam Grabarski, the President and CEO of the Minneapolis Downtown Council. We are the business association formed in the 1950s to look out for the future commercial growth of the Central Business District. I work for 50 business leaders appointed by the overall downtown business community to serve as their professional president. And this is...
Greetings, I am Sarah Harris. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the Downtown Improvement District in Minneapolis, and I represent all of the businesses in downtown that pay for over $6 million worth of services to make downtown better on an annual basis. And I'll be talking about that some today.
Thank you for being here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a brief presentation to make. I'm going to be making a reference to a very important document, important to us, Downtown 2025, which will disclose what we think is going to happen in the Central Business District for the next 15 years. If I could ask a page or an aide to start these in both directions, I want to make certain that members of the committee have an opportunity to see these at their discretion. We are here today to answer your questions about a request for the redesign and refurbishment of Nicollet Mall. And we begin with the simple question, why Nicollet? Is that up on the screen? Number one, job, business, and creation. We're going to hope to demonstrate that this is much more than construction jobs. This is many thousands of jobs going forward that will relate to the business that's going to be built along the mall. Number two, a statewide asset. This is the front door to the state's largest convention center. It is one of the most remembered locations for tourists, international ones in particular, when they visit the metro area. It is the location for many of the state's largest corporations. Number three, it is an existing asset. It was built in the 1960s. It was remodeled in the 1990s. Sarah Harris will tell you a little bit about the cost of maintaining it in the past and going forward. The business community has been involved in Nicollet Mall since its inception. And number four, the deterioration of the mall, which is truly important and truly expensive, and again, I'll leave that for Sarah to discuss with you more openly. 2025 plan, what does it have to say about Nicollet? It was my job for the last, I'm sorry, I should be doing that. Thank you. It was my job for the last 15 years to oversee the previous 15-year plan called 2010. And as a matter of fact, I'm proud to say that most of the contents of that plan were implemented during that length of time. The business community takes the 2025 plan so seriously that, Mr. Chairman, if this hasn't been called to your attention, I stepped down later in the year so that a new president for the next 15 years can take on that plan. If that's not serious, a person stepping out of the way for a whole new team to take over, I hope that you do see how serious we are about it. I'll be an aide to that president, but I won't be the president for the next 15 years. We say in that document going around that Nicollet must be a must-see destination. It must be a modern pedestrian corridor with clean emission transit, connecting the Mississippi River to the convention center and businesses, retail, and all along its way. And we have to update that design to address the many, many changes that have occurred on Nicollet Mall since it was opened in the 1960s. Cafes, farmers markets, greening. 100,000 people more work on the mall today than they did when the mall was first opened. And we have 36,100 residents now living in downtown Minneapolis. The project details are somewhat impressive. We hope you'll agree. It will be the full reconstruction of Nicollet from Washington Avenue to Grant Street. It will be at least a $58 million project. This bonding request is for $25 million. The private sector is ready to supply a minimum of $28 million toward this. We have the process and the team in place for that to occur, and there will be many, many millions of dollars over the next 20 years involved in the ongoing maintenance by the private sector. This is a project that is a complete partnership in every way between both the city of Minneapolis and the downtown business community. The project details continue. 22,000 construction jobs over the 13 years of the expansion of the mall. I can tell you that during my 15 years as president, we added 10 million square feet of offices to the Nicollet Mall, and we only project at this point as much as 3 million square feet going forward, not being overly pessimistic about the future, but the market has to adjust each time we add one of these major tall towers to downtown. But over that period of time, 22,000 jobs. 13,000 new permanent jobs along Nicollet as that workforce continues to grow. Downtown Minneapolis added 2,500 jobs to downtown Minneapolis in just the last 12 months. $174 million is projected in revenue that will come to the state from these new permanent jobs. Mostly the permanent jobs that are involved between now and 2025. The job, business, and tax-based creation, we think, has high potential in this project. Downtown Minneapolis is one of the largest employment centers in Minnesota. On the block or within one block of Nicollet Mall are 130,000 employees. The state's 4 largest hotels and 4 department stores are also located along the mall. Thousands of living wage jobs are located within that one block of the mall. 500,000 conventioneers annually use Nicollet Mall during their visits. And as you'll see in some testimonial statements, downtown and the mall are key to recruiting for many of the larger employers in the state. I know your packets include a fact sheet, and they also include a testimonial sheet, and I think in the interest of time, we have to be careful not to read something at great length that you might be able to read for yourselves, but if you can locate those testimonial statements, I would very much appreciate it. The first one comes from one of the largest employers in the state. On our executive team is the Executive Vice President of Target. His name is John Griffith. John has the unique job of actually operating every Target store in North America and Canada. This is a statement on the record for committee members. With 4 office towers on Nicollet Mall, the street serves as a significant asset for Target teams, not only as a major transportation hub, including bus, light rail, and bicycles, but also as a critical means to establishing work-life balance. Target team members pick up food for their families, buy their clothes, gather for fun in many restaurants along the mall, and embrace their well-being by having walking meetings between all their facilities. It goes on to say, it is key to the shopping, entertainment, and social life of our employees. Nicollet Mall is more than just a street, it's a community hub. Target has 12,000 employees on Nicollet Mall. Job creation and business growth is important for our smaller employers as well. Lund's Food is about to open this spring, our first right in the central business district, the Lund's Food Store. Trace Lund is on our board of directors, and he says, as a business owner in downtown Minneapolis, we support efforts aimed at ensuring the vitality of the downtown area, that it remains strong. A vibrant Nicollet Mall in the core of downtown Minneapolis is key to the vitality of the entire downtown area. J.B. Hudson Jewelers, a small jewelry store located on the mall, offers you a statement. I think one of my favorite parts of this, hard to imagine how many businesses can actually say this, but J.B. Hudson has been located on a thriving Nicollet for 100 years because of its role as the crossroads of the region, and it goes on to say why she believes that this is important. The job creation and the business creation are very important components of the work that you do. We wanted to at least reinforce that you have a precedent for investing in infrastructure that allows the private sector to grow. 3 examples that we show on the screen: Highway 610 for Medtronic, a bridge for St. Jude, and an important street for the Mall of America. I think the important thing is, will you see that return in your investment? As a statewide asset, we offer 2 statements that come from very prominent companies that are not located in downtown Minneapolis that happen to serve on our board of directors. The Senior Vice President of Human Resources for General Mills, I didn't bring my reading glasses, and this is really small text right now. I hope I can see what this says. He does say that it is key to their recruitment of talented future leaders who will help continue to grow General Mills businesses around the world. In other words, he tells us that when he wants to recruit senior executives, he brings them to the Nicollet Mall for its vitality and the image that it presents for the region. Honeywell says, while Honeywell is not located in downtown, and Bob Ralston, by the way, is a building controls manager for North and South America. We have 3 other locations, Greater Twin Cities, employees, base of over 4,000 people, and he goes on to say that the mall is very important because of its the highly competitive environment in which they operate to recruit talent from across the United States. The next slide says downtown Minneapolis and Nicollet Mall isn't just a downtown street. It's not a mere city of Minneapolis street. That happens to be a color-coded representation of one division of Target headquarters. This is the real estate division, showing that their employees come from all over the Twin Cities metropolitan region into downtown daily for their jobs. Brooklyn Center, by the way, happens to be the orange color, if you want to know how broad the geography of that map truly is. And then one more slide from me before I introduce a resource guest. It is a statewide asset even for our medium-sized enterprises. This is a distribution map of how far people come into downtown for one mid-sized company located in downtown Minneapolis. Their employees come daily from as far north as Duluth, east from Wisconsin, from south as far as Albert Lee, and from west as far as Fergus Falls. Below his cover, this is a map that has to do with the distribution from Ryan Companies. We have as a resource guest today the president of the Minnesota Division of Ryan Companies. Ryan, I hope you know, is one of the largest construction companies in the United States, and they are here to reinforce the message of how important this project is to their company.
And while he's coming up, we have a quorum now, I'd like to renew my motion to have House File 1400 be laid over for possible inclusion in our capital investment bill. Our recommendations for that will be made after we hear all the bills. And welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record. Yes.
Mr. Chair, can we move the DE amendment as well?
Certainly, if that's the way the author would like to have the bill.
Yes. It is the 812-0615 amendment, Your Honor.
Right.
Mr. Chair.
Would you like to present the amendment, or you?
It just puts the bill in the shape that we would like for it to be in, and all the testimony that you will hear that has already gone forward and that will come after just illustrates the importance of the bill.
Any member have any questions about the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Bill is the way you want it. Representative Champion.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Cullen Barr. I'm the president of the Midwest region of Ryan Companies, and delighted to be here with you today. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, for giving us the opportunity to speak. Our company its national headquarters is located on Nicollet Mall in a mixed-use property that we developed from the 99 to 2001 timeframe. Our firm, Ryan, developed 3.5 million square feet of contiguous blocks on Nicollet Mall from 1997 to 2002. These development projects included 4 office towers with the world headquarters of U.S. Bank and Target Corporation, a 2-story Target store, and small shop space that fronts Nicollet Mall. The businesses located in these 3 blocks of the Nicollet Mall now employ about 12,000 people, all of who add to the economic vitality of the region that was proven in part by the distribution maps that you saw earlier from Sam. Now, these 3 projects specifically would not have been accomplished, nor would they have happened unless these world-class companies that we're talking about had chosen to locate their headquarters on Nicollet Mall. Clearly, that was a result of the original vision and investment put forth to create this asset for our region. We feel it's time to enhance the vision and both repair and improve Nicollet Mall as one of our state's key strategic assets. Clearly, Nicollet Mall and its vitality will always be a key part of our state's economic health. Currently, over 140,000 people, Minnesotans, work in 34 million square feet in close proximity to Nicollet Mall. Firms like U.S. Bank, Target Corporation, General Mills, Cargill, and Medtronic all use Nicollet Mall as a key recruiting tool when recruiting talent and other businesses to grow here in Minneapolis. Now, although Nicollet Mall has helped drive expansion and economic growth for the entire metro area, today it's severely deteriorating. Meanwhile, while our pedestrian mall is deteriorating, other cities that we compete against, places like Austin, San Antonio, Seattle, Denver, are swiftly pushing forward with their communities to build a more attractive place for businesses to locate. You know, I've heard it said by many Minnesota architects that they describe Nicollet Mall as Minnesota's front porch to the world. Now picture this neighborhood street for a visitor who's walking this central corridor of the United States as his neighborhood stroll. And he experiences, or she experiences, 16th Street Mall in downtown Denver, the Riverwalk in San Antonio, Millennium Park in Chicago. And then she walks up to our front porch, our Nicollet Mall, and what does she see? Broken down concrete steps, peeled paint on the front porch rails, rotting floorboards. Of course, this is figurative, but I hope you can get the point here. It's time to fix our front porch to the world. That's why we're here today, because we believe Minneapolis' future and the future of Minnesota is certainly tied to the health and vitality of Nicollet Mall. Now, I know money's tight for the state. It's tight for all of us businesses and families as well. I'm a builder. My dad was a bricklayer. I know what it means to manage to a budget and to set priorities for a budget. I think this is a priority for our budget now for the state of Minnesota. I'm also a developer. I'm an entrepreneur. I know a great deal when I see one. This is a great deal for Minnesota, an investment that will provide long-term payback to our stakeholders. That's why I'm so excited to be here today to ask you to make this important investment, one that will pay huge dividends for our state for many decades to come. By turning Minnesota's most recognizable street, our front porch, into Minnesota's main street and helping our state to remain a great place to live and do business for many decades to come. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we bring to the table now Bob Jones, who is Vice President of Retail Banking in the Minneapolis Marketplace for TCF Bank. Mr. Jones.
Welcome to our committee, Mr. Jones. Give your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Bob Jones, and I'm with TCF Bank. I've been employed about 38 years, so I've been downtown a long time. Most of my tenure employment has been in the Minneapolis area. So I feel I'm fairly qualified on knowing what our customers are doing and know the banking industry and the environment for downtown Minneapolis. Obviously, TCF supports this project. We feel it's important to keep the atmosphere and the environment of downtown vibrant. There are a number of activities that take place downtown besides just customers doing business, banking. We have the farmers market in the summertime. We have the Howdazzle Parade in the winter. We have individual employees who go to the Target Center, to the Twins games, and all of these individuals use the facilities in downtown Minneapolis. Our deposits, we have about $140 million. There's 3 offices downtown. Our 801 Marquette, which is a little bit off of Nicollet Mall, is the main branch, but we have 2 offices that are absolutely adjacent to Nicollet Mall, which is in the IDS Tower, and the other one's in the Target Skyway. So we definitely are in favor of this. I think it's important to note, too, again, that there is private dollars involved in this, and it is vibrant for us, I think, to go forward and have a positive business environment.
On this way.
Mr. Chairman, I'll step away from the table with Mr. Jones, and we'll stand ready for any questions that committee members might have. But I'd now like to turn this over to the Chief Operating Officer of the state's largest business improvement district, Sarah Harris.
Welcome to our committee, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee members, thank you for having us here today. I get the glamorous part of this.
Can you give your name for the record, please?
Oh, Sarah Harris, Minneapolis
Thanks.
Downtown Improvement
Thanks.
District. I get the glamorous part of the job today, and that is to show you why the sense of urgency and timing is now. Nicollet Mall was built in the 1960s and renovated in the 1990s, but largely has not changed for the last 5 decades or so. It has been a proven leader in the economic health of downtown and of the region. As Sam mentioned in his testimony, the 35,000 employees that were there in 1960 have grown to 160,000 now. We have all the state's largest hotels there. This is the place where commerce really started in our region with the first Dayton store on Nicollet Mall. And because of that, the private sector has been very involved and invested in Nicollet Mall, maintaining it and repairing it all of these years. But we have now reached the point where it is just not prudent to keep investing in something that should not be repaired. It should be replaced. And so that urgency is driving us to be here today. And now I will show you the things that we try to hide, candidly. We've been trying to show our best face to the public, and now I'm going to show you the kinds of things that we've been repairing and trying to hide, and why the Nicollet Mall is beyond its useful life. First of all, we have a failed paver system. Every time it rains, which I'm thinking the rainstorm we're about to get today will actually cause problems for us tomorrow. Every time it rains, we get water into the paver system, it pops the tiles, it makes them heave, it makes them unstable, it makes them a tripping hazard, it causes them to crack. But what's also happening is because there's no drainage in the system out there, it's causing water to seep into all of the adjacent buildings. So not only on the outside do you start to see the problems that you see in the left-hand picture, underneath the mall, in the buildings, you're starting to see pipes that are rusting from the outside in each of the buildings. The pipes you see there are the main water flow and sprinkler system for the IDS Center. That's about 3 years old, and those are rusting from the outside in because of the water that's seeping in from the Nicollet Mall. The light fixtures that are out there are custom. The granite is all cracking. The fixtures themselves are no longer available. So if a fixture breaks, we have to custom make it, which is incredibly expensive. And the wiring system to the lighting fixture is no longer functioning. We have shorts all of the time. The tree grates that are out there, the frames are completely disintegrating because of their age. They pop up daily, and this presents a tripping hazard. The planters that are out there, the granite is breaking, and while you may think this is an aesthetic issue, it is something that people notice when they are there, when they're walking down to Mr. Barr's point. This is our front porch, and this is what people are seeing when they're walking along the mall. Additionally, the planters are above ground, which means the plants don't survive over a winter season, and that's a very expensive every year planting for the business community to take on. The electrical systems and the irrigation systems are really past their useful life. They are very fragile anytime we work on them at all or even start them up in the summer. They short out or they break. We have heads that are broken, ruptured lines. We have no ability to add additional capacity if it's needed. And equally important, they are built so shallow in the ground that anytime a repair is done for any other reason, a road repair, a sidewalk repair, we are usually running into these lines and breaking them. And I'll leave on this note. The use and function of the Nicollet Mall is critical. This mall was designed in the 1960s, before we had 160,000 employees downtown, before we had 36,000 residents. But equally important, it was before the world wanted to do things like sidewalk cafes, parades, events, farmers markets, the kinds of things that make a downtown and a region vibrant. We've managed to do some of that in downtown where space allows, but when we redesign the Nicollet Mall and rebuild it, it will allow for this to be a major function in our downtown and our region. And with that, I'd like to introduce Council President Barbara Johnson to talk about this from the city's perspective.
Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Barbara Johnson, Minneapolis City Council President, and I appreciate your letting us testify today. And one of the things I just want to say is that Minneapolis has always embraced public-private partnerships. And, right now we have a partnership that hauls half of the city's garbage, a private partnership. We have a private company doing our city's IT function and plowing our alleys in the wintertime. We know the benefits of these partnerships and how they help us manage our budgets, keep our workforce right-sized for the functions we do in-house, and allow us to find expertise outside of our core areas. The oldest of these partnerships, one of the oldest, is the Nicollet Mall. We in the region have benefited for over half of a century from this public-private partnership with the downtown business community. This is a partnership which has grown into a larger relationship with the whole downtown through the Downtown Improvement District. And that's a model that we have replicated in over 12 special service districts across the city, where business owners tax themselves to provide the ongoing operation and maintenance of their public space. All of you know how important it is to have a vital downtown area. It's important not just to the convention and visitor business, but to the whole business community. This kind of business support and success that you have heard about from previous testifiers and that is continuing to blossom in downtown Minneapolis is a success for the whole region and the state. The kind of growth, however, that we see on the Nicollet Mall it shows us the need for significantly updated infrastructure to allow that success to continue. I represent the far northernmost part of Minneapolis, northwestern corner of the city. I don't represent any part of downtown. However, I know, and my colleagues on the City Council know, how important it is to have such a successful, strong relationship with our business community and such committed partners to making our downtown successful. And that success is not just for Minneapolis, but for the whole state of Minnesota. And when our business leaders come together with grand plans and great needs for our business centers, we need to listen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Representative Champion.
just to finish up here, Mr. Chair, one thing I think has been so eloquently stated by every testifier that's come forth is the reinforcement that this is a statewide asset. And even though it's in downtown Minneapolis, there are many folks who benefit around the state from this statewide asset. Either they work there or visit there, and many will continue to benefit. We need the state as a strategic partner in this endeavor. As you will see from the legislation that has been put forth, we're asking for $25 million to be appropriated from the bond proceeds. We believe that this is a great opportunity for us to work together. I believe that we are at what I would call the intersection of opportunity. And so I would hope that you all would agree with me and for us to go forward together. So thank you so very much, and we will stand for questions.
Questions from the membership? Representative Leidinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not often we get such distinguished testifiers here. Councilman Harris, what is the county going to be doing with this project? What kind of commitment have we seen from Hennepin?
Ms. Harris.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, may I answer?
Certainly.
All right. Thank you, Mr.
We'd
Chair.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. I didn't know if the question was directed to me. But the county is assessed as a part of the Downtown Improvement District. The city's properties that are in the Downtown Improvement District are assessed just like the private properties, and the county's properties are as well. So they will be contributing through the assessment process.
Mr. Chairman, if I could be allowed.
Go ahead.
I think the irony of this is that the Business Improvement District that is led by Sarah Harris has agreed over a 5-year period to assess itself $30 million for the general operations and maintenance of Nicollet Mall. And we've turned the tables in the best possible ways with our partners. Believe it or not, the business community taxes the city for its fair share of the maintenance, and we tax the county for its fair share of the maintenance. They pay a very small share because in the overall scheme of things, the majority of the operations of the mall are oriented toward tall towers, but they do pay their share. And so this is one of the more extraordinary public-private partnerships that I'm aware of in our state because of the fact that we're all in it together paying this bill.
Maybe you'll start a precedent.
Mr. Chair, thank you. And I did get your name wrong. I'm sorry, Councilman Johnson. The second question that I have, and really I just want to get a feel for this, what's going on with the river walk from North Minneapolis, from the city proper up north along 2nd Street and there? It seems to me there was one time there was an initiative to really put a lot of development in that, and I don't know if you could call it move some center of commerce there. I'm not really sure, but could you just speak to that also, and how does that fit into the whole plan? I realize it's not directly related to this, but I would appreciate just a little bit on that.
Mr. Chair?
Councilman.
Representative, thank you for the question. We actually have been involved very heavily in a development with the riverfront north of downtown. And our Downtown 2025 plan goes to the riverfront and then includes linking our downtown with the riverfront, and then also supporting the development that's being proposed for north of the downtown. So beyond actually West Broadway on both sides of the river. Very exciting plans. We've had the Park Board sponsored a design competition, and they've made some recommendations about key investments that will happen along the riverfront in the northern area of the city. And this improvement provides the connection to what will be an extension of the riverfront into the northern part of the city, both the north and northeast Minneapolis.
And thank you. And just one last question: Does the Nicollet Mall somehow that will then tie into it, the north end of that? How does that do that? I mean,
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I don't know what happened to the 2 sample copies we were sending around of the 2025 plan, and to the extent that I could encourage members to that didn't get a chance to peek, please take a look. There are 10 major chapters in this plan. It took 90 of downtown's most prominent investors, thinkers, educators, the civic leaders to work over a year on the creation of this plan. You will see that there is a chapter that devotes itself to the rebirth of the riverfront, which we continue to think might be one of the greatest assets that any of us who are on the river could enjoy for our future economic development. In my business, over my career of working with downtown in the United States, people are just rediscovering their riverfronts. Once we turned our backs to them, now we see that they are an extraordinary international asset by reputation. The Nicollet Mall project will marry up with the riverfront, even though we stand before you talking about what you could characterize as a mere street. It is not a mere street, as we've said, in 13 blocks, 130,000 people working on it or within one block of it. It is one of our great resources, but it is part of a network of resources that the 2025 plan describes. We want to produce one of the greenest downtowns in terms of the canopy of trees. Sarah Harris and others are working on the idea of the business community more than paying for its fair share of that as well. So the riverfront is not forgotten in this. We see ourselves working for the next 15 years to make it all flower to the full potential as one of the great assets of our community.
We got 4 more bills after this one, so we have to kind of work as fast as we can. We have Representative Mahoney. We'd love to have you. Somebody from St. Paul ask you a question.
Well, Mr. Chair, as my role as one of those people that likes to speak about Minneapolis on a regular basis, I have one question and then one comment. You've got 160,000 downtown employees, and then you keep talking about 130,000 affected by the mall. Which is it?
Well,
130 or 160?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Representative, there are 160,000 people working in the central business district. We're trying to emphasize their high concentration along Nicollet Mall.
Okay.
For instance,
So I'm going to use 130.
you should use 130.
Okay, that's good, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, my second comment, there's a lot of new members on our committee here, and this essentially works out to about, you should have gone with 160, about $200 of a subsidy per employee, and that $200 is being matched by the employers of those 130,000 employees. Now, if we could maintain or attract a job for $200, Mr. Chair, what would you say?
Bravo, well done.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to that. Representative Clark.
Just a couple of questions. I did look at the 2025 book, and I'm remembering that you said 1990 was the last time the mall was renovated, and I don't know, Mr. Grabowski, if you're the one who wants to answer this one. I think you were the one who mentioned that. So that's like 22 years, right? And this next plan, the 2025, is for 13 years. What I'm wondering is, are we planning ahead? I mean, everything is cracking from the last renovation. What went wrong there? And was there any sort of warranty or any sort of guarantee that was expected there that you're building into this? These developers? Is there any sort of, hopefully it's not the same developers.
Mr. Chairman, no one is better prepared to answer that question than is Sarah Harris, but I wanted to recognize the distinguished member of the Minneapolis delegation who cares as much as anyone I know for the human condition. I hope you'll notice the chapter where we are going to attempt to be the first city in the United States to eliminate street homelessness.
Thank you, Mr. Grabowski. I did. That was my second question, but we'll stay with the first one first. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Harris.
Mr. Chair, Representative, the deterioration has been caused by a variety of things, not the least of which is 20 years is a really good long time for such an active, well-used space. That's been coupled with the fact that the original design used surfaces that were maybe not appropriate for our weather, and also it was more of a facelift than a full reconstruction. So they put down a paver system in the not optimum setting for a paver system, and the paver system is really not the most appropriate material for a winter climate. So when we move forward, we will be looking at concrete and other solutions that really do work well in our winter climate, but also serve the function well for the expanded use that we see for the Nicollet Mall.
Mr. Chairman, so we expect this will last longer, it sounds like. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. I did have a comment about the homelessness, and I was really pleased, as you kind of pointed out, to see that in the 2025 report. I saw that it looked like an estimated $4 million for the first year or something like that. I don't have the document in front of me. But I'm kind of wondering how that will happen, and maybe that's a discussion to happen later from here, but I just want to say I think if that investment really can happen or be part of this discussion as we go along, that'd be really important.
Mr. Chairman, I'm mindful of the time limitations, and I can tell you, Representative Clark, if you'd like to know more about our plans and some other...
We can talk later.
I'd be happy to do so. I can tell you that we already have raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in the business sector alone, and 150 people are now living in homes that were not living in homes prior to that act. And we are dedicated to make certain that this happens in
Thank you.
the time of this plan.
My last question is for the author of the bill, who has been my great buddy in making sure that jobs that are promised in wherever the construction happens, make sure that some of them come home to our districts like yours and mine. And I'm just wondering if there's any sort of guarantees built into this this bonding bill.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Representative Clark, for the question. There is a commitment to make sure that that there's inclusion and that as many people as possible are able to work and able to make sure that they are able to gain or generate a livable wage as well. And so we will continue to make sure that that's a part of the guiding principles going forward. I think that's also reflective of their commitment to the homeless. So we know it is a natural extension, not just from the homeless, but to make sure that they're preventing people from being homeless by making sure that there are opportunities for our district and for those who live in the neighborhood to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Minna, and I'd be glad to work with the author and others, make sure we do have that. Just one final aesthetic comment, and then I'm done. I'm
One
done.
thing I'd like to tell you, the best answer to homelessness is a good job.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. That's why I think we heard that from Representative Champion. Just one final aesthetic point. I'm not sure why we're straightening out curves. That's just a question. I love the curves of Nicollet Mall, so it's just a question. And the other thing is I have heard from constituents who are concerned about PV Park. We can take this discussion later, but these are aesthetic questions and questions of access and so on. So just to let you know that, put that on the record.
Mr. Chairman, so noted.
Okay. With that, I will move House File 1400 be laid over for possible inclusion in the capital investment bill. Thank you very much for your wonderful testimony. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
And next on board we have Representative Gauthier. Kim, you want to move his bill?
Mr. Chair, I'd move House File 588
Bonding.
for
Bonding.
for bond
Capital.
for possible possible inclusion in the bonding bill.
Thank you, Representative Gauthier. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your graciousness and your help in getting this hearing. I appreciate it very much, as do the people of Duluth. I do have an author's amendment, Mr. Chair, to get the bill in the shape that we would like it. If we could have someone move that.
Would that be the A1 amendment?
It's the A1 amendment.
This looks like it's technical changes.
But
Does anybody member have any questions about the amendment? Seeing none, I will move the A1 amendment to the House File 588. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And what that amendment did was up the City of Duluth's commitment to this project, and we appreciate that.
So good change.
Yes, it was. It was a great change. I'm going to talk a little bit about Wade Stadium, and then I'm going to have Terry Raylaw from the City of Duluth talk about the project itself, and then Craig Smith from the Duluth Huskies. In 1940-1941, under the Roosevelt administration, under the WPA programs, Wade Stadium was built. And what happened during that time, they were doing a renovation on Grand Avenue, which is a major thoroughfare of western Duluth, and they were tearing up the bricks. And as that crew tore up the bricks, another WPA crew came along and scooped them up, and they built Wade Stadium with 381,000 recycled bricks. And that stadium was dedicated on July 16th, 1941, and the guest of honor at that dedication was Joe DiMaggio. And baseball became not only America's sport, but it was also Duluth sports for the next 71 years. And what I want to tell you is, and Mr. Smith will probably talk more about this, is every summer college kids who play college ball come to Duluth in the hopes to be discovered and get into the minors. And we've had a lot of famous ball players play in Wade Stadium. They include Hank Aaron, Willie Stargell, Dave Winfield, J.D. Drew, Darryl Strawberry, and then the home team, the Duluth Dukes, was home to Denny McClain and, of course, Roger Maris, who hit 62 home runs in one season. And I think this is important because there's only 3 of these stadiums left in the United States. It's the Duluth Stadium, Erie, Pennsylvania, in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And what this project would do is not only raise the level of the stadium, but it would make it multi-purpose. We used to be able to hold outdoor concerts there. We can't do that anymore. There are days we can't play baseball because we have to vacuum the field because it doesn't drain anymore. And so on and so forth. In talking with the buildings trades, this project would put to work electricians, bricklayers, pipe fitters, carpenters, and laborers, just to name a few. Terry will talk about some of those things. And that we look at this as a fall-winter project mostly because we want to play ball and we don't want to forgo a season. And it will be the anchor to what is becoming the new sports corridor in Duluth, in my neighborhood. Wade Stadium would be on the north end, and Heritage Center, which has been open for about 5 years now, where we play hockey, is on the south end, and we're trying to move development with a sports theme around there. So at this time, I'm just going to turn it over to Terry Rayala from the City of Duluth, and she can talk about the project, and I believe you received this handout, and she'll go through that with you.
Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Terry Rayala. I am an architect for the City of Duluth. I work in facilities management, and I see firsthand the conditions of Wade Stadium. I know and I deal with the unfortunate consequences of deferred maintenance. And like many other people, I have a vision for how great the Wade can be again. The Wade was built in 1941, and it is one of the 3 remaining WPA stadiums still in use. This historically significant and beautiful red brick facility has definitely seen better days. Today, the Wade has deterioration of the brick joints in the building, causing water damage on the interior. The exterior brick wall, which is the fence on the infield sides, is leaning. It's ready to topple over. It's one blizzard away from collapse, and that could be tomorrow. The lack of a field draining system, combined with our northern colder climate, doesn't allow the grass to establish itself before the ball season. In fact, half of the games we play at Wade are prior to the growing season. So if ever there was a candidate for artificial turf, it is the Wade. The concession stands. They're very confined. There's a narrow concourse by today's standards. The concession equipment, it's obsolete. Our walk-in cooler is no longer acceptable by the State Department of Health. All the building utilities, the infrastructure, need to be updated and upgraded to meet current codes. And that includes our electrical wiring, our plumbing, and our drainage. And actually, this is an opportunity for us to implement some energy-saving measures, including LED stadium lights. So why am I talking to you about a small ball field in Duluth? Because that ball field means a lot to Duluth and to the surrounding neighbors. Currently, we have over 20 user groups who take advantage of the Wade, from the Duluth Huskies to all the area schools to future potential concerts and to community events. There's a lot of people who use the Wade, and a lot of people visit the Wade. Maybe some of you have. And a lot of people remember the quality of the Wade when it was in good repair. And they remember when it was the pride of Duluth. So, we ask you, please help us save the Wade. Thank you.
Well, would you give your name for the record, please?
Mr. Chair, committee members, my name is Craig Smith. I am the general manager of the Duluth Huskies Baseball Club. The reason I'm here, and my two colleagues here have very eloquently stated what's wrong with the stadium, but to put it into participatory terms, we, 2 years ago, we play 35 games a year. We play 70 games in 75 days. We don't have time for rainouts. We can't make up games, so when we do, we have to play double headers the very next day to get this summer collegiate season in before these kids got to go back to college. 2 years ago, we had 9 rainout games, dates. Of those 9 rainout games, and we lost those 9 games to the schedule. Of those 9, the infield was covered and prepared to play on all, well, 7 of 9 of those dates because it wasn't raining out. It was raining out those other 2 days that we couldn't play the games. 7 of 9 of those games, the infield was prepared and ready for play. We had water standing up to our ankles in the outfield on those days, and we could not remove the water fast enough to do this. So just to give you an idea of the conditions that are out there to play, which has an adverse effect not only on our games, but on every other user group, from American Legion Baseball to Senior League Baseball to the colleges that use the facilities, the high schools, the Minnesota State High School League, conference tournaments that go on out there. We need to have the field situation remedied, the lights remedied, and the actual concourse modernized while maintaining the historic significance of that stadium. It's very important to the city that it does that. Prior to my employment with the Duluth Huskies for 10 years now, I was a city recreation specialist in charge of athletics for the city of Duluth, and I was responsible for Wade Stadium and for scheduling, maintenance, all those types of things. And I will say that efforts have been made in the past to try and attempt to fix this thing over the course of the years, but all of the efforts resulted in just Band-Aids. This is a renovation that really needs to go from the ground up and to make it more green and to double the usage right now. Over 131 games are played in that facility right now from the 3rd week in April through October. We believe that the baseball games will double, not to add programs like flag football, junior league football. All of these programs will now be able to use that facility in an unlimited manner, just due to the artificial turf and the new. It's going to be a really community gathering space. We've had concerts, we've had flea markets and Boy Scout jamborees there in the past, and we want to get back to that full community gathering space. So I urge you folks to help us get that facility back to the standard that we all hope and pray that we can get.
Representative Gauthier.
Mr. Chair, just in closing, I think they've covered most of the things. I want the committee to know that this is a priority for the city of Duluth. We have 2 priorities this session, and they are of equal value from the city. And since they found out on Friday that we were having a hearing today, Duluth has lit up with baseball every day. We talk about the Wade. So I want to thank you for the opportunity, and we'll stand for questions.
Any questions from the members? Representative Stensrud.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the testifiers. I know we've heard a lot of budgeting requests. I'm just curious, you have a stadium. What kind of operating budget, and, I mean, you plan for some kinds of repairs, and I know it just seems like a lot of deferred maintenance in many of these projects, and we hear from many different bonding requests that, we haven't fixed this place in 20 years, and now the state of Minnesota is left to, bond, significant, millions and millions of dollars. I'm just curious what kind of an operating budget you have, and is it a drain on the city, or does it sort of operate and maintain itself based on income and that kind of stuff?
Representative Stensrud, I'll answer generally, and then I'll turn it over. What has happened in Duluth since the 80s has been, we went through a very serious recession there. and the tax base wasn't strong enough to begin doing some things. So our parks have really suffered, and this comes under Parks and Rec. The city has just passed a special assessment in the last election, which are committed dollars to Parks and Recreation, because it's become a priority to the citizens of Duluth, because our parks are, and also part of that is the library fund. Since we've done that, the first of the year the city opened library branches has doubled attendance. We see some of our parks in such dire repair because there were no resources, that those are going to spark life, and this is going to be a major component. And this is going to be a major economic development for Lincoln Park, where I reside and represent. Lincoln Park has the second largest sales tax collection in the city. And with developments like this, I think we can move into number one. We're only superseded by Miller Hill Mall. We do better than the downtown and other business districts, so we're really proud of that. And we see this as the next corridor in the city to strengthen our economy. Now, to budget questions, I'll turn it over to Terry and Craig.
Mr. Chair, Representative Stenzer, to answer your question, one of the things over the last several years, we, of course, as the Duluth Huskies, we pay a rent on a per-game basis to the city that covers all the city's expenses, those types of things. It has not been able to charge youth user groups the same amount of money for the simple fact that they don't get the services that except for the use of the field that they should have in that situation. I think with the renovation, that will all change with bringing the fee structure to cover those expenses, as well as hopefully generate enough funding, and this will be up to the administration, Duluth, of course, to put some money aside for general improvements over the course of time.
Representative Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an interest question. My wife and I enjoy coming up to Duluth and visiting from time to time. What's the significance then of Wade, the historic background?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Murphy, I guess I'm going to answer that on a personal level. My cousin and I were barkers at Wade Stadium. We sold Cracker Jacks and popcorn, and when we quit doing that, we waited for the 7th inning stretch so we could get in. So it became a vibrant place for kids. And over the years, it's kind of lost. And what I can tell you with the new owners of the Huskies, that's coming back. There's nothing better than a nice, cool Lake Superior breeze and a baseball game. So this is part of our community. It's the fabric of our community. And the people of Duluth really see Wade as a historic marker of an era and of the future. So that's how I would answer that to you. Anybody my age was at the Wade, and now their kids and grandkids are going to the Wade.
And just a quick follow-up.
Don't forget your bills coming up last.
And
I'll buy you a cup of coffee next time.
And who was Wade?
Wade was the first owner, I believe, of the Duluth Dukes. Okay. And in 1951, we changed it from the Duluth Municipal Stadium to Wade Stadium in his honor.
Thank you. Let's hurry.
Representative Mahoney renews his motion to have House File 588 pass and be sent, laid over and be sent to the Capital Investment Committee. With that, no, we don't have to favor. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your good presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
Representative Mahoney.
I don't want
Another bonding. Welcome to your committee. And while he's up there, I will move the minutes of February 23rd. I've read them thoroughly. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Passes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move House File 1387 for possible inclusion in the bonding bill. I think this is bonding. And Mr. Chair, there is an amendment coming around. Many of my colleagues will like this on line 1.7 and 1.13. Delete 2.3 million and put in 350,000.
How much?
350,000.
You got my vote.
Thank you. It's always good to go with the chair, Mr. Chair.
Would you please explain your amendment? No, we'll just assume this. Can we just take that? Okay, all in favor? Any questions about the amendment? No. A1 amendment. Seeing none, I'll move the A1 amendment. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes. Now your bill's the way you want it?
Mr. Chair, members, in your packet you have this particular map. This is the 3M site, the old 3M site on 7th Street. 3M has closed down all that manufacturing there for a variety of reasons. The city and the Port Authority, and to some extent some involvement by the state, has, and I will say this about 3M, they've cleaned up considerable amounts. They've taken care of all of the messes that they've left. I want to say that they're a good corporate citizen. But what they didn't fix is the plumbing. This bill is a request for $100,000. And if you see the black dots on that map, it replaces the sewer and water to the one building left, and for future buildings. It's $100,000 in request for a state bonding request, and then the historical preservation is $250,000, and that is the red star just to the bottom of the page of those black dots. So, Mr. Chair, committee members, this would, with this, it should be the finish on 400,000 square feet of business office space, 1,000 permanent jobs at the expanded businesses, and there's a variety of construction jobs. I won't bore you with all the numbers here, but this is what this committee does. We redevelop old sites and put new buildings up and revitalize old pieces of land in the cities and in our towns and counties. I can stand for it. I brought the Port Authority, and that's the reason I jumped the space, so hopefully she has a 2 o'clock meeting, so I'm trying to be relatively brief.
Welcome to committee. Ms. Lauder, any questions about the bill? Seeing none.
I have one question there.
Oh, I didn't see.
Please, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, and I'm going to be quick. Are we preserving one of those buildings? Did I hear you say that for a museum or something? There's the main. I know there's the main building, the old McKnight building down there. Is that the one that's going to be?
Mr. Chair,
Representative Mahoney.
That is is it 5-story or is it 3-story? 2-story main office building from the 3M complex that was built approximately 1960 era. It had the founder's office in it and stuff. We are not preserving it as historical. We are actually turning it into a multi-use office building. So the $250,000 for historical preservation is really I don't know, what is the name of the group?
Ms. Lauder, give me your name for the record, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, Lori Lauder, Director of Business and Intergovernmental Affairs at the St. Paul Port Authority. The answer to the question, Mr. Chair, is Jim Stopelstead, who is a 35-year developer, is going to be taking over that facility and completely renovating it and providing multi-tenants, office tenants.
Very well.
And the $250,000 is a requirement of the. I can't remember the number, but it's basically the historical groups have said that we need to provide a historical marker that talks about 3M and the importance of 3M to the state and to the east side of St. Paul.
Representative Scalzi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And relating to the same point, isn't there a building there that was built in the 20s? I don't know if it's Building 31 or Building 3 or something. Is that what we're talking about? Because I heard someone say 1960s, but I think it was much earlier than that, if I'm right.
Ms. Louder.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Scalzi, yes, this is the building. It's called Building 21. You were close on the numbers. And this building was built in the 20s or so. And so that is the oldest structure. This is where John McKnight brought the company down from Two Harbors, as you may recall. And this was the first world headquarters of 3M. So we're delighted to see a developer interested in renovating it.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, would you like to renew your motion?
I'd like to renew my motion, Mr. Chair.
All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Laid over for bonding. Representative Paymar, your bill's next. It's our day for St. Paul. Welcome to your committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand you're going to have an omnibus bill, Mr. Chair?
We are.
Okay, then my motion is that I would move that House File 2311 be laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus Jobs and Economic Development Finance Bill.
Very well.
Mr. Chair, given that we don't have much time here, I'm just going to quickly introduce the bill and turn it over to Cecile Bedore from the City Planning and Economic Development Director in the City of St. Paul. And Chris, I don't know if you want to say anything or not. Councilmember Tolbert, who's newly elected, is also here. I just wanted to say briefly that, as you all know, it was a sad day when Ford finally decided that they were going to shutter its doors in the Highland Park neighborhood in St. Paul. Had been a great corporate citizen for many, many years and employed hundreds of good-paying jobs. And unfortunately, St. Paul did not figure into their long-term business plan. Back in 1977, this legislature appropriated $5 million from the bonding bill in general fund dollars to build a training center for Minskew purposes and also for Ford. And one of the covenants of that agreement was that if the building was not to be used again, that they would have to repay a portion of that grant. And that's exactly what's happened, is that the whole facility is going to be torn down and the training center will also be closed down. So this would, Ford will pay $1.8 million, I believe. And what we're asking the legislature to do is to put this into a special revenue fund for Indeed for future use for the Ford plant. We're in the process now with the neighborhood of trying to figure out a proper mixed-use development for that site, and we're hoping that we're going to have good-paying jobs there in the future, and that's what the fund will be used for. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Bedore, Mr. Chair.
Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Cecile Bedore, again, Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of St. Paul. In addition to Councilmember Tolbert, Merrick Clapp-Smith is here today, who's the lead planner working on the redevelopment of the Ford site. And we appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of this bill. As you may recall from all the articles in the paper, at its high point, the Ford plant employed over 2,300 folks, very high-wage jobs. 20% of those people lived in Ramsey County, and the balance, 80%, lived elsewhere outside the region or within the greater 13-county region. So as a result, the legislature and the governors over the years have really viewed the Ford site as a regional asset and a key regional employer for the state. As Representative Paymar noted, in 1996, there was money that was allocated to build the training center that was built in 1999. We really think this was one of the tools that the state was using to help incent Ford to continue investment and to stay there. In addition to that, back in 2010, you may recall that the state passed the CAR Z legislation to provide additional incentives to get Ford to, again, retain the plant. Mayor Coleman and Governor Pawlenty flew to Michigan and presented this to Ford. Unfortunately, neither this nor the training center were sufficient to keep the plant open. Because Ford, as Representative Paymar said, intends to demolish it and will be making the payment of $1.8 million, and because one of the key goals of building that training center was to retain jobs at that site, it follows that this payment should come back to the Ford site to try to recreate some of those jobs in Highland Park. Thus, our hope is that this will be one of the a key tool that DEED can use to help us as a city recruit those new jobs to the site. And given the challenge that the country currently faces in retaining manufacturing jobs, it's really unlikely that we're going to get 2,300 new jobs, but we really want to make a big effort to bring at least a portion of those projects back. And doing so, I think, will be a significant win for this region and the state. The national competition is really fierce. Ideally, business owners would choose Minnesota solely based on as many assets that we have, but reasonable incentives often are the tipping point that pushes businesses to make those investments. You funded in 2008 a green manufacturing study that we undertook. One of the key findings in there was that incentives are a necessary component of attracting new employers. It noted many local and state governments have stepped up the amount of subsidies they are making available to revitalize brownfields. Given this highly competitive environment, it will be essential that the Ford site be backed by significant public subsidy to differentiate it in the market study, or in the marketplace rather. Likewise, the U.S. Department of Labor recently issued a report repurposing former automotive manufacturing sites, and they too found that the application of incentives was one of the most important characteristics that have been used in redevelopment of these sites. Quote, federal and state and local government incentives played a positive role in many redevelopments. This is also consistent with the research that we have done in terms of redevelopment of 5 Ford sites. All 5 of the sites that we reviewed had some incentive, and the state involvement was played the most significant role. It also noted that a focused regional team is necessary to attract redevelopment partners and secure funding. This unexpected payment from Ford is the result of the closing of one of the region's key employers that operated in our state for over 80 years. The state of Minnesota, the region, and the city of St. Paul, we hope, will really work to honor the legacy of those jobs by ensuring additional and new jobs are created there. And in today's world of very generous incentive packages in the hundreds of millions of dollars, 1.83 may not sound like a million, may not sound like a lot of money, but it really could make a significant difference in our ability to recruit, and will make a significant difference to those families who will be the beneficiaries of those jobs. So we really appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here today and are happy to answer any questions you may have.
I think this is a very good bill. Any members, questions from the members? Anything else you'd like to present? Representative Paymar?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't know if there might be some other testifiers that
we'd love to hear them.
I don't know if I want to hear them, but no, that's okay.
Welcome to our committee. Give your name for the record, please.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members, my name is Wayne Wisłowski. I'm the Director of Real Estate and Construction Services for the Department of Administration. We are the party to the agreement with the Ford Company, and the state of Minnesota built the building with general fund dollars. The state of Minnesota has fee title to the building. We have a 25-year ground lease, and it's the ground lease that is being, where Ford is exercising their early termination option, which essentially is buying out the state's ownership interest in the building. This certainly doesn't go at all against the intent of Representative Paymar's bill. Just wanted to explain what the intent was with where that money was going to be used in the absence of this bill. There's been a land sale requirement that really started in fiscal year 04 that required, it was part of the Balanced Budgeting Act, to sell state-owned real estate and deposit the proceeds to the general fund. Since fiscal year 2004, we've deposited over $16 million to the general fund through the sale of state-owned real estate. What happened in 2005 is there was because we were very successful in selling property in the 04-05 biennium. There was a new requirement put in place in 05 to sell $6.44 million worth of state-owned land, and we've really struggled to reach that goal. And every biennium, at the end of the biennium, that date gets extended out 2 more years. Currently, we're at $4.3 million towards that $6.4 million requirement, so we're about $2.1 million short. The intent, again, was to use this money to go back, to be credited against that land sale account, and it does go back to the general fund anyway, but it would be credited towards that land sale requirement to help deal with that ongoing budget issue that the state has.
Thank you very much for another idea we could do the money with. We'll vote on this one first. Representative Paymar, would you like to renew your motion?
I would, Mr. Chair, I'll renew my motion that the House File 2311 be laid over for possible inclusion in the finance bill.
Very well. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much for the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we did it anyway. Representative Murray. Welcome to your committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to move House File 2332 to get it in front of the committee, and then I believe we are just going to lay this over today. So thank you for the opportunity to present House File 2332. This bill seeks to address the disparity between the metro area and greater Minnesota in the application of the Angel Investment Tax Credit. I think most of you were here a couple weeks ago when we had Representative Downey in front of us and we talked about the amount of funds that were being used within the Angel Investment Tax Credit in greater Minnesota and also in the metro area. And you could see some of the disparities that were going on there. Specifically, what my legislation would do would be to double the Angel tax credit for investments in greater Minnesota from the current 25% to 50%. To date, as I mentioned, a large majority of the tax credits and investments under the Angel tax credit program have landed in the metro area. And this has caused a number of the communities that I represent some concern about being able to access more of these dollars. While I support a very strong and vibrant metro area, it's also important that we have a strong greater Minnesota. And so that's why I'm here today to try to start the dialogue and talk about this. And what I would like to see when we finish discussing this is a positive effect for all areas of this state, both greater Minnesota and the metro area. I'm concerned that the Angel Tax Credit Program, as it's currently designed, may not be meeting the goal of greater Minnesota. I'd like to find ways with you, discussing this with you, that we can make this program better for the entire state. This proposal is just one option. I'm open to discussing this. We have been in discussions a little bit with Deed on this. I've also had discussions with Representative Downey as he has his Angel bill going forward. And we're trying to just work on different ideas and have this discussion to try to figure out, you know, we are one Minnesota. Let's try to make greater Minnesota succeed just a little bit better under this program. Joining me today is J.D. Burton with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the background, and I thank you for supporting greater Minnesota.
Mr. Burton, please give your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is J.D. Burton. I'm with here on behalf of the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I want to thank Representative Murray for authoring this legislation and thank all of you for the opportunity to talk about this issue a little bit more this session. As Representative Murray noted, the Angel Investment Tax Program was enacted in 2010. It was a program that was designed to help startups and emerging companies get connected with investors from around the world. The CGMC did support that program in 2010. We actually initiated some language in the statute That helped track where these investments were going, so we had a better idea if they were landing, where they were landing in terms of greater Minnesota and the metro area. And today, the Angel Investment Tax Credit remains a program that the Coalition does support. We're also pleased to work with groups like DEED and the Angel Investment Network on some of the efforts they're taking to boost access for this program across greater Minnesota through their intake centers and other efforts. It's our hope that a program like this would succeed and that we'd see investments occurring across the state, both in the metro and in greater Minnesota. It's because our cities know that future development across the state in all areas is important for the vitality of our communities as well as all. It's because of our support for this moving forward that it was somewhat troubling for our members to see the disparities in the application of this program between greater Minnesota and the metro area. I provided a handout which gave a quick summary of some of the investments that have taken place since the program was enacted. In 2010, 91% of the businesses receiving qualified investment were located in the metro. Only 9% were in greater Minnesota. The total investments made that year, 94% were in the metro area, whereas only 6% were in greater Minnesota. This was a fact that's something that DEED in their 2011 report called surprising and a concern. Those numbers improved slightly in 2011 as DEED testified a couple weeks ago in this committee. In 2011, 90% of those businesses received a qualified investment in the metro versus 10% in greater Minnesota, and then 80% of the investments were in the metro versus 13% in greater Minnesota. Our members are concerned that the program as designed may not be working exactly as it could for greater Minnesota, and we are open to exploring options to help build that for a better program in greater Minnesota. As Representative Murray articulated, this bill would double that credit allocation. This measure is part of a larger CGMC economic development plan that we brought forward to the legislature this year. In fact, several business organizations have formally endorsed these proposals, including the Laverne, Albert Lee, Freeborn County, Crookston, and Worthington Chambers of Commerce. Our members believe that an increase in the credit will cause investors around the world to give a second look at a greater Minnesota business or to look for investments located in greater Minnesota communities, or it may be enough for them to be willing to invest in a business that may be outside of their home area. We believe that this will help reduce the disparity in the program's application and enhance the program's value in greater Minnesota, which thus would enhance the overall program's value because all communities would be succeeding. We recognize that a 50% credit like this may not be the only solution to spurring new investment in greater Minnesota. We believe that this may be the beginning of the discussion and not the end. But members also believe that the disparity created under this program is a concern and should be examined today, and that options to improve the program's performance in greater Minnesota should also be explored. And we believe this is particularly important to do this now, considering the limited duration of the program, which is set to expire at the end of 2014. Our members want this program to continue beyond that point so that all of Minnesota can benefit. As I mentioned, the doubling of the credit is one option. We believe it's an option that would help draw new investors and encourage new companies to look at greater Minnesota through an investment. So we look forward to working with you, the members of this committee and the legislature, on ways to improve this program for the metro area and for greater Minnesota, and I thank you for the opportunity to testify. Thank you.
Mr. Murray, you got anything you want to add?
Not at this point. Maybe we could open up for questions, and we're looking for ideas and suggestions from the committee.
Representative Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the time is getting short, so I've got a few things I'd like, a couple of questions, some comments. How many angel networks do you have in greater Minnesota?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Mahoney, excuse me. I'm not familiar with the specific angel networks that have been established, but I do know that there are intake centers that have been set up in 4 of our communities.
Well, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, an angel network is the actual people who actually put money into the investment. More often than not, the investors particularly like to be within an hour to an hour and a half drive of their investment. What you're seeing with your numbers on this board, on this sheet of paper that you handed out, or you could go to the DEED website, is that over 90% of the investors, well, I shouldn't say it that way, they're either, over 90% of the investors are either out of state or metro area. So what you're trying to do is set up a false dichotomy of forcing a investor to go beyond where their rule of thumb typically takes them. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman,
Murray.
Representative Mahoney, I don't believe that we want to take an investor beyond where they're comfortable being, but if we can enhance, what's happening in greater Minnesota, maybe they'll take a look beyond that 90-minute or 90-mile time frame there.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Mahoney.
This is a question for Representative Murray. What this bill would do would severely hamper the angel investment credit. One of the base principles of it was that money was supposed to flow to where the best deals were. And I have suggested to your testifier, to a variety of other members of the committee, not this committee, but I mean chairs of other committees. Have you looked for other money?
We've talked with our, Mr. Chairman, Representative Mahoney, we've talked with our economic development arm. Albert Lee, several years ago, did have some people try to set up an angel network within the community there. I believe that happened just before 9/11, so it did not come to fruition after that. So, we have done some of those things locally. And we're here today to have this discussion, this give and take. We want to know what's your idea that you think you can help make this better, because you know as well as I do, if greater Minnesota succeeds, the metro area succeeds, and vice versa. We don't want to come in here today and try to take something away from the metro area. We want to make this program better for all of Minnesota.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Representative Mahoney.
Representative Murray, you didn't come and talk to me. Jay, your testifier did, and I told him a number of different things. Maybe he didn't pass them along to you, but I also told a number of committee chairs the same that I'm telling you, both in the Senate and the House. There are systems out there that reduce the dollar figure for the base investment of $100,000 or $250,000, depending on how you want to phrase this, down to $10,000. So you can start smaller. Because that's actually what your problem is out in greater Minnesota. There's not the volume of dollars that there are in the metro area. And that would be one track to take. I think Representative, I'll get you the name. He put the bill in a couple of 4 years ago. The other is the new dollar figures. $13 million worth of ethanol money is coming off of the books. And the Ag Department has $13 million, well, I should say $11 million, because they took $2 million out to balance the budget. If you look at it, it almost mirrors the angel investment requirements of investing in new technologies, bioag, variety of other things. It's a loan program. It's not an investment program, just for a loan. It's $11 million. If you want to do that, I think that's the place to go looking for some money, and all of a sudden you're not taking the $12 million, which is going to be gone by June. Before we're out of here, it's very likely to be done and gone. You have another $22 million for greater Minnesota on top of this one. Because frankly, I think at a certain point, if you want to do that, that's fine. I think you set up a system that doesn't really work or get to where you're trying to go because you don't have the underlying foundation. But by the time we leave here today, this session, this $12 million is going to be gone. And the bill will be kind of pointless. So you need to look and find new money. And I want to tell you, I've told multiple chairmen about it, and I've gotten the same response I'm getting right now. So that's a better place to go and try and figure out what to do with ethanol money that is essentially a loan program over at Ag with the same purpose as the angel investment credit. And it's got $11 million, and that would make it through December of this year.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Mahoney, I appreciate your input, and probably my bad, I should have come and talked to you, but the bill come up real fast. I think Friday afternoon I got a call, so I talked to as many people as I could, but I appreciate that input, and hopefully we can have a discussion offline here, and I look forward to that and learning some more of your ideas and suggestions that you might have. So,
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Representative Murray would like to renew his motion. Is that correct?
I would do that, and I would just thank the committee for their time today and for starting this dialogue, starting this discussion. We appreciate that opportunity. We're trying to do some things out in greater Minnesota, and this is just one of the tools available, and we will work forward with some of the members and others offline to work on this. Thank you.
So, thank you. With that, we'll lay this bill over, and any other questions from the membership? With that, we will adjourn. Thank you very much.